What is going on, everybody? We are diving in and looking back at week two. Gonna go through our picks, see how we did, and pretty much recap what was an exciting week two, but a week two that was kind of overshadowed with a lot of injuries. Obviously, the JJ McCarthy injury, but the biggest injury, possibly, probably, definitely, is the Joe Burrow injury. So, Joe Burrow has been announced that he is going to have surgery on that turf toe, and he's out for 3 months. And this is, I would say, the biggest injury in the NFL up to this point. Not because I thought the Bengals were going to be Super Bowl contenders this year, which surprisingly, my critique on them was I thought their defense was going to be terrible. But their defense has not been that bad actually through the first 2 weeks. So maybe they were better than I thought they were. And actually, it's their offense that didn't seem to be firing on all cylinders. But Joe Burrow got hit way too much in the backfield. That offensive line could not hold up. And ultimately, he gets a turf toe injury that requires surgery now. So he'll be out 3 months, which is a brutal, brutal injury for the Bengals. Just interesting that the schedule turns out this way, where now the banged up Bengals without a quarterback, without their starting quarterback, take on the banged up Vikings without JJ McCarthy. And interesting game because I think there's a lot to ride on this one, especially for Minnesota, who this is the lighter part of their schedule before they hit the bye in about 3 weeks, and then it gets brutal for them. And with the Bengals at this point, any winnable game is a must win if you want to have any chance when Joe Burrow makes his return. They got to hover around 500 at least, give or take, and hopefully for them that he could get back in mid-December or so and give them a chance to sneak into the playoffs. So Jake Browning has had some moments as a Viking fan. I remember him bringing the Bengals back and beating us when we played them in Cincinnati. I think it was 2 seasons ago. The Vikings had Nick Mullins for that game, who put up like 400 yards, but Jake Browning did too, and he had a hell of a game. So they have a chance with Jake Browning to at least maintain. And the Vikings have Carson Wentz, which nobody knows what to expect. It could be a blessing in disguise almost for the Vikings with the way that offense has been playing. So it can't possibly get worse, right? So who knows? It'll be an interesting game. But enough injury talk. Another point I want to touch on, speaking of the Vikings, Aaron Jones has been placed on IR. They're starting running back, so he's out for at least 4 weeks. All right, let's recap the week that was. So we got off to a good start. We picked Green Bay, and Green Bay got the job done when they took care of the Commanders. I thought it was going to be a closer game than that, but Green Bay got it done pretty easily. All right, then Cleveland at Baltimore. Baltimore looked the part. I thought 11.5 was the high line, but they did it. I mean, they looked really good, and there was nothing much Cleveland could do. Ultimately, they won 41-17. Cincinnati and Jacksonville. So we picked Cincinnati, and it didn't look like it was going to happen, but Jacksonville pretty much shit the bed and ended up losing 31-27 there at the end. And Jake Browning was the one that did bring Cincinnati back. So, there'll be a drop-off, obviously, because Joe Burrow is tremendous. But, the offensive line is still pretty atrocious for them. So we'll see how they handle that moving forward. The Giants played in Dallas, and that was probably the best game of the whole week. And Dallas needed a 64-yarder from Brandon Aubrey to tie it and send it to overtime, where then Russell Wilson, who had a pretty good game, threw an uncharacteristic pick down the field. And then, and then the Cowboys came right back down and got the game-winning field goal. So they win by 3. Got that one right. Chicago, Detroit, got that one right. I said Detroit isn't going to be as bad as week 1 made them look. They're a better football team. I picked them to win the NFC North. And after 2 weeks, it looks like there's no chance. It looks like Green Bay is going to run away with that division. But there is a chance. It's 2 weeks in. We'll see how the season plays out. New England at Miami. Got it right. New England took care of business 33-27 in Miami. Things are not good in Miami. Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat. Might be one more week for him, and he might be out by week 4. We'll see. San Francisco at New Orleans. Got it right. San Francisco, even with Mac Jones, took care of business 26-21. Buffalo at the New York Jets. Got Buffalo on that one. Yep, they got the job done too. I mean, the Bills, I didn't think they'd win by that much because, that week 1 comeback, they kind of needed some luck with the Derrick Henry fumble, but they looked great. And, they took care of business. They won 30-10. Justin Fields did not look good at all. All right, Seattle at Pittsburgh. That's our first one. That's wrong. Pittsburgh lost this one. Really sucks for them because the turning play in this game, they were only down 3 points, and their kick returner pretty much it touched his hands, the football touched his hands outside of the end zone, and then the ball trickled into the end zone where Seattle then ran and jumped on it, and it went out of bounds, and it ended up being a touchdown. So, I mean, I'm not super aware of how those rules work, but I'm also not the kick returner for any NFL team. So that was a big mistake by the rookie running back, Caleb Johnson. And so, Seattle ended up taking advantage of that play and taking advantage to win the whole game. All right, Rams at Titans. I thought this was going to be my upset of the week, and I was wrong. I mean, the Rams, took care of business and looked good. And now, they're 0-2, but for them, it's more about Cam Ward. Is he good enough? And Cam Ward didn't look bad. I mean, Cam Ward, is not going to be the one player that's going to win them all the games, but at least if you have a competent quarterback, it's a start. Now you start building around them. Carolina at Arizona. Arizona got it done. So they took care of business of the Panthers, and they don't look great either. And I don't know what to do there because it's either Bryce Young or their second-year coach, Canales. And who do you blame if this season goes bad for them? So I'm not sure. So can we see this? Is it still visible? Okay, yeah, here we go. Denver at the Colts, another loss because I thought Denver was going to bounce back from that barely squeaking by Tennessee in week 1 performance. But no, they lost, and the Colts are 2-0. So that's I don't know what to make of that. Maybe Denver's not as good as we thought, or maybe Indianapolis is better than we thought. And keep this in mind, I had the Colts winning the AFC South. I didn't think they were a juggernaut or anything like that, but I still thought they were going to be pretty good. So I think it's more likely that the Colts are just a good team. Philly at Kansas City, got that one right too. Philadelphia looked the part. Kansas City kind of looked like what we've been expecting them recently, where I think the hype is there with them because Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but Kelsey's not the same. And that team, honestly, now just doesn't strike fear like they used to. But never sleep on Mahomes because he is a special one-of-one player. So we'll see how they recover moving forward. Atlanta and Minnesota, this one was embarrassing for the Vikings, embarrassing for me. I was at this game, and the fans felt it. They got off to a great start. The fan base did by holding Atlanta to a field goal. And yes, I'm crediting the fan base because the fan base caused like 3 pre-snap penalties on the Falcons in that first drive that kept pushing them back, and they settled for a field goal. But the Vikings, the offense just did not look good. Tampa Bay at Houston, got that one wrong as well. Tampa Bay coming through at the end. Baker Mayfield's a stud, and he showed why there at the end. And it was a close line, and it was a close game. And again, and on that final drive, Baker had a perfect throw to the rookie, Ibuka, and he dropped it, and he still overcame that. So that's why Baker's a dog. All right, Chargers at Vegas, and the Chargers, I mean, they looked really good. The Raiders didn't, and Justin Herbert may have figured something out. Jim Harbaugh, great coach. So overall, a pretty good week for us. I'd say, how many losses did we have? We had 1 loss, 2 loss, 3, 4, 5. So 5 losses. So 15, 10 and 5. Is that it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 and 5. Pretty good week. So not bad. And now we'll look ahead to week 3. Obviously, we have Thursday night football that'll kick off on Thursday, and that'll be the Dolphins at the Bills. And I think actually this will be Mike McDaniel's last game coaching for the Dolphins. I think they're going to get smacked by the Bills, and it would be a good time to do it, quite honestly, because then you have a mini bye before you have to play in week 4. Let me see who they play in week 4. But that just sounds like that's when it should happen if they get smacked by the Bills. Are they off? Do they have a bye week in week 4? They might have a bye week in week 4. Oh, no. They play Monday Night Football at home against the Jets. So you get an extra day. Yeah, this is, I think, I'm calling it right now. I think this is Mike McDaniel's final game as the Dolphins head coach. We'll see if I'm right. But one more thing I wanted to talk about with the Joe Burrow injury is that everyone is complaining about the Cincinnati Bengals not protecting Joe Burrow, and this is what happens, and you're supposed to protect your starting quarterback at all costs. Well, in a league that has a salary cap at all costs actually means something, and you actually are limited. And this is what happens when people were constantly talking about pay the man with Jamar Chase. Pay the man with T. Higgins. Pay the man with Trey Hendrickson. what money do you have left over to pay the man for the 5 offensive linemen that you so desperately are complaining about that aren't there to protect Joe Burrow? And again, I'm waiting to hear from the mainstream media person that's going to, pop off and say, listen, y'all wanted this. Everybody sitting in all these studios wanted this when they were constantly saying that the Bengals have to pay T. Higgins, that the Bengals have to take care of Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson, and they have to pay those guys. This is how it goes. You can't pay everybody. Now, I said it since the moment that they signed T. Higgins. You can go way back and look at that video. When they signed T. Higgins, I said, I don't think this is a smart move. I would have traded T. Higgins because having so much of your salary cap pretty much attributed to 2 guys that play the same position. So on every given play, they both can't touch the ball. It's just a wash. That's just not smart. And both on offense, when you're already paying your quarterback top-tier quarterback money, which Burrow deserves. I'm just saying that's just not smart. You know what would have been better for the Bengals? If they would have traded T. Higgins, used one of those picks on the lineman, and the $30+ million that they're paying him used to pay 2 above-average offensive linemen. Now you would have had 3 old linemen in place for the return of T. Higgins. And again, I just think that building smart football teams is quote-unquote boring. And people fall in love with the rah-rah and the excitement and, picking exciting players in the draft when sometimes you got to pick boring because boring wins football games. How many, aside from Tom Brady and I guess Gronk, but how many elite playmakers did Tom Brady play with? When he got Randy Moss, that was the end of his career. Chad Ochocinco, end of his career. People could have been complaining and saying like, man, they should be, trading and signing, trying to get Marvin Harrison or, Terrell Owens. But you know what they were doing? They were getting the boring right. They were getting the offensive line right. They were getting the Mike Vrabels right. And that's what you do to win football games. I mean, I'm sorry, but those, it's a 53-man roster. And if you're top heavy with the top 4 being elite Pro Bowlers, that's great. But you got to have some left over to fill in some of the rest of the roster. And I think that's the Bengals' problem. So when people are complaining about the Bengals didn't do enough to protect Joe Burrow, I agree. But also, you cannot be complaining about that if you were also banging the drum for the Bengals to pay T. Higgins and pay Trey Hendrickson and pay Jamar Chase. What money left over did you have to pay these guys that were going to protect Joe Burrow? So again, if you're a Bengals fan, I recommend you look back to that video I had a couple months ago when they were talking about paying Trey Hendrickson. Everyone was talking about, you got to pay Trey Hendrickson. That's fine. But I even averaged it out, and I think that left about $2 million per player for the rest of the roster. And you're going to get an O-line, a $2 million per player O-line, which is going to do nothing for you. So that's how it goes. Anyway, we'll talk some more football as the week goes on. I hope you guys have a great evening. Subscribe, like, comment below, and we'll talk more football as the week goes on.